All right, what's up, my fellow football fanatics? Seahawks, Niners just completed. Niners moved to 3-3. Seahawks fall to 3-3, but the tiebreaker is the Niners as of right now. Big win in Seattle for San Francisco. Back's kind of against the wall. After this game, they got to travel to Kansas City next week and play them. You couldn't lose this game. This was a must-win moment. If you did, you'd fell to 2-4. Obviously, Chiefs next week, you could be staring down the barrel of a 2-5 season. Can't have that. So, they clutch up when it matters. Get off to a hot start. Seattle did a great job holding them to field goals in the first half, which really turned out to be a huge reason why Seattle was able to get back into the game. But we're going to dive into all of it, examine the game. We're also going to do a look ahead to this weekend, a couple games to look out for, players to watch as well, and a special spotlight on somebody I want you to look at this weekend because boy, oh boy, is he entertaining. So before we start, like and subscribe, comment down below. Like I always say, let's talk football, baby. So without further ado, Seahawks and Niners. Niners win 36-24. Brock Purdy, 280 yards, 3 touchdowns. Jordan Mason gets knocked out of the game early, but fear not. The Niners just do what they do with the running back position. They draft late round guys, and they just hit every single time. This was a nice full circle moment, you could say, for me, because Isaac Guerendo, the running back who came in and played for Jordan Mason since he got injured, rookie out of Louisville, 6'1", 225 pounds, ran a 4.33 40, 41.5-inch vertical. I remember seeing him at the combine thinking, this guy is like a Lamborghini tank. How the hell can you be that big and move that fast? And of course, like every player that I like in the draft, I wanted the Patriots to get him. But the best option after the Patriots was the Niners, and it made all the sense in the world at the time. And sure enough, since CMC was out, Jordan Mason goes down. He steps in, and it's like they didn't miss a beat. He ends up sealing the game on a 70-yard rush. First play after Seattle scores their touchdown, trying to hold him, get the ball back, which, since the Niners failed their 2-point conversion, they got the ball back. They were going to win the game. First play, all the way down to the goal line. He takes a knee right before he gets in the end zone, which had to be an insanely tough thing to do, but that's what winning teams do. They make unselfish plays. They punch it in with use check a couple plays later, make Seattle burn their timeouts, and, some padded stats there for the final minute. Didn't really mean much, but what does mean much is San Fran is now 3-3, and they are at the top of that division, tied with the Seahawks, who now fall to second place after their 3-0 start, which, if you're a Seattle fan, you were feeling real good. You'd come out, your defense was flying around. Geno looked pretty spectacular. You had a solid 1-2 punch with your running backs between Walker and Charbonnet. And now you've dropped the final 3 games. Or the past 3 games, excuse me. Your interior defensive line has taken a hit. You're without Tariq Woolen, so you do have some injuries. But the Niners have more injuries. There's tons of teams that you just have to battle through these injuries. And the concern we had for the Seahawks when they were 3-0, like all the teams that were undefeated, i.e. Vikings, Steelers, was, is this team for real? And we've seen that the Vikings are. They have sustained it. When you get to 5-0, it's not a fluke. You're a legit team, especially beating the teams that they have. But the Seahawks, you beat the Giants, you beat the Patriots, and I believe you beat the Browns. I'm having a tough time recollecting that. Point of the fact is, we didn't feel like that 3-0 was a legit 3-0. 3 weeks later, seems like we were right. That's not to say that you guys aren't a good team, because you can tell you definitely have the pieces. I mean, you've had the pieces for a couple years now, and it's putting them together, and you can't seem to do it, and it all seems to point back to Geno Smith. He's a good quarterback, but you have to feel like if you put Herbert, Burrow, Jackson, Mahomes on this team, I mean, they'd be undefeated and in the Super Bowl every year. This team is loaded. And that pick that he threw to Renardo Green, another nice little full circle moment with the draft pick out of Florida State corner. I was like, oh, wow, this is my night. You just can't have that happen. You had all the time in the world in the pocket, even as you had been getting pressured all night. You had a moment to kind of collect yourself, drive the ball downfield, and part of this is on DK Metcalf as well. He seems to slow up in the route and kind of let Renardo Green get underneath, which is the one thing you can't do if you're running a dig. You got to keep it in a straight line to prevent that corner from coming underneath and cutting off that route. And bad play, both guys. And that really was the moment in the game where it got a little bit out of reach, because it was only 23-17. You had an opportunity, you had the momentum to go down, get a touchdown, take the lead. The crowd would have been rocking. The offense hadn't done much in a little bit on the Niners side of the ball. Your defense was starting to really hold them. And you turn it over in a terrible way. So I'm sure this one hurts a little bit more than your other games where you lose to the Lions, you just got outplayed. This one, Niners start off hot. You hold them to field goals. You start to gain some momentum, and you just blow it. So we'll see where this Seattle team goes. Obviously, priority number one is getting healthy. And then priority number two to me is you got to figure out your run game. You have Zach Charbonnet and Kenneth Walker, who are probably one of the best two-headed duos in all of the NFL. And it seems like you run it 15 times a game. And you got Geno Smith, who we all believe, pretty solid quarterback. But a quarterback that you want throwing it 40 to 50 times a game? We all get that you got DK Metcalf, and you got Tyler Lockett, and you got Jackson Smith and Jigba. But I just mentioned those two running backs. Geno Smith does great when he can hit plays off of play action, and you have the setup for that. You have an underneath guy, an over-the-top guy, and a big physical body to catch the ball over the middle. So what is holding this offense up this year so far? They seem to love to air it out, and it's just not the recipe. It's not sustainable, especially being a Northwest team. You're going to need to run the ball come wintertime, and you have the tools to do it. So just do it already. It doesn't make quite a lot of sense. So maybe that's something they work on. Because the defense, even though they gave up 36 points, they're going to come around. Mike McDonald, he's a defensive genius. And once you get Brian Murphy back, Tariq Woolen back, things will start to kind of fall into shape a little bit there. Moving on to the Niners, and like we said in the beginning of the video, this was a huge win for the Niners. You could not afford to fall to 2-4, go 0-3 in the division as well, and then have to go and play the Kansas City Chiefs, which we know they have your number. Brock Purdy does his typical Brock Purdy thing. No turnovers, 3 touchdowns, almost 300 yards, solid completion percentage, gets some yards on the ground, does a great job evading pressure and just dispersing the ball in a professional way. And as we talked earlier in the season, the Brock Purdy slander just needs to come to a full stop. This is it. National TV leads his team to a win. It's over. He's a good QB. He's a great QB. And he's one of the best QBs. Outside of that, Defense, still some issues, but you like what you saw out of them tonight. They were flying around, not a ton of miscommunications. You were down your top corner, Charvarius Ward. Hufunga's been out, and obviously Dre Greenlaw's been out all season. This is week 6. You're trying to finally put the pieces of the scheme. It's maybe starting to come together a little bit. And you saw it. First half, dominant. They were dominant in the first half. 3 points against a potent Seattle offense. So, second half, maybe you get a little bit cushy. I mean, really, you only allowed, they had 24 points. You only allowed 17 points because they had that kickoff return for the touchdown, which is a whole nother separate issue with the Niners. But the defense played good. You feel for Nick Bosa a little bit, man. He plays his ass off every single snap, and he just couldn't get a sack tonight. You feel for him. You really want him to get there, but he didn't. Fred Warner, another incredible game. 11 tackles, had a nice forced fumble. Seattle recovered, but almost a game-changing play. Like I mentioned, the 2 rookies, Mustafa and Renardo Green, get the picks. Big-time game. Diamador Lenore showed up, had some pretty solid coverage on DK Metcalf when he was mashed up on him, so you like what you saw from the defense if you're a Niners fan, and I'm sure the coaches will be pleased. Obviously, some stuff to improve on, but that's a step in the right direction because this defense really, since DeMeco Ryans left, has not looked the same, and they've struggled to get a replacement in there because you guys have all pros at every level. So, solid game tonight. We'll see how it moves forward. Real test next week against Kansas City. Final thing on this game, the Niners special teams, they've got to figure something out. That game had no business being as close as it was because they dominated for most of that game until Laviska Shenault takes a kickoff 100 yards for a touchdown. And that allowed the crowd to get back into it, gave a little bit of energy to both sides of the ball for Seattle, and made it a closer game than it should have been. And this is a reoccurring theme with Kyle Shanahan's teams. We saw it earlier in the year when they were playing, I believe it was the Cardinals. Or no, that was last week. They had earlier in the season, they had a couple bad punt returns against them in critical moments. They just, over the past couple of years, consistently let up in big special team situations. You know, everybody wants to cast aside special teams like it's a lesser third of the game. We saw tonight, it got Seattle back into the game. And it put you guys ahead last week when you blocked the kick and took it for a touchdown against the Cardinals. And it won the game against the Seahawks for the Giants when they went to kick a game-time field goal, blocked it, and returned for a touchdown. So I don't know what you have to do, but you've got to figure out a way to get consistent, solid special teams play. Because everybody remembers Kadarius Toney in the Super Bowl. Huge punt return. Pivotal moment in that game. Special teams. Desmond Howard, back in 1995, won the MVP in the Super Bowl. Kick returner. Devin Hester, first play of the Super Bowl. Kick return for a touchdown. Special teams matter. And now that you lost your kicker and probably this one because he decided to kamikaze himself into a grown-ass man, now you need a third kicker. Which, you know, hopefully he's okay. That's not Kyle Shanahan's fault. Good job, kicker. You got to make a play. But you got to figure out how to not let, first of all, the kickoff return that did go for a touchdown right up the middle. So somebody make a tackle. The second of all, the last kickoff of the game, you guys break contain. He goes up the sideline. That's why your kicker had to make a tackle. So they got to button this stuff up. Can't be an issue. Championship teams are solid on all 3 levels, and the defense took a step in the right direction, but the special teams continues to idle at a low speed. Moving on, congratulations to the Niners. Sorry about it to the Seahawks. Better luck next time. They got your number, that's for sure. We're going to jump into something that I call Elijah's Eye, and we're going to do this every Friday in sync with our Thursday night football reaction video. We're going to take a look at the Saturday slated of games for the college football, and then Sunday, all the NFL games. And we're not going to count the Friday night game for college, and we're not going to count the Monday night game for the NFL. We're just going to look at the 2 weekend days, 3 games to watch out for, a key player in each of those games that maybe you don't know about, and then a special spotlight to a player who I want you to watch this weekend or whatever weekend we are talking about. So, Elijah's Eye, game number 1. And this one is obvious because sometimes the obvious answer is the right answer, and that is Ohio State versus Oregon. Number 2 versus 3, baby. This is what joining the divisions, the conferences in college football was all about. Big time matchups that would never happen in previous years at this stage of the season, happening on a random Saturday night in the middle of October. You gotta love it. I'm obviously leaning Ohio State in this game, because typically Big 10 teams or SEC teams have the edge over Pac-12 teams. Even though the Pac-12 teams are good, there's just a level of physicality that they can't withstand that you would in the Big 10 or the SEC. But I'm going to give you some things to look out for, because this very much could be Oregon's game. And the recipe to this is, can the Oregon defense withstand all the playmakers that the Ohio State Buckeyes have on offense? Let me run this through for you. At running back, you got Quinshawn Junkins. You got Travion Henderson. 2 stud backs who are going to be in the NFL next year. At wide receiver, you got Emeka Egbuka, top 3 receiver in the draft coming up this year. And then you have Jeremiah Smith, true freshman, who we've talked about on this platform before. He's an absolute dog. You have some good corners, Jabbar Muhammad and a couple other DBs that have a chance to play on Sundays. But do you have enough in the arsenal to withstand this insanely potent Ohio State offense? And, you know, Ohio State, I wouldn't say either of these teams have really played anybody that worthy. And Ohio State just feels like they fully even haven't clicked on offense, even though they've been winning 38-7, 45-7. They played Iowa last week. They beat a 45-7, ran for over 200 rushing yards. And that's what Iowa's good at doing, stopping the run. So this is a tall task. Oregon's got some defenders in the middle of that defense, and, you know, in 3-4 terms, you know, they got a nose tackle and a defensive end that pretty solid players. But like I said, Ohio State just put up 200 yards on Iowa, and Oregon's run defense pretty solid. Although if you rewind 3 or 4 weeks ago when they played Boise State, they ran for over 200 yards on you. And that team's nowhere near as good as Ohio State is. So the key to Oregon's game on defense is, can we stop the run? Because you're going to have a hard time stopping Jeremiah Smith and Emeka Egbuka. It's not going to happen. Not for all 4 quarters. These guys are going to get open. But you can't let Ohio State run all over you. And then on the flip side, for Ohio State, the key to their defensive game plan is, can JT, Tuamalu, and Jack Sawyer contain the Oregon offense from getting outside? For as long as I've been alive, Oregon is built on speed. Speed, speed, speed. That's what they are. They're a finesse speed team. They're not a power. They're not going to run the ball up the gut. They're not going to beat the shit out of you for 60 minutes. They're going to outrun you. And if you can prevent these running backs and receivers like Tez Johnson and Evan Stewart from catching jet sweeps or bubbles or outside zone plays from getting outside the tackle box and then making a couple guys miss on the edges and then taking it for 10 to 20 yards a chunk, then you're in good shape. But if you can't, Oregon is going to expose you all day long because there's not many teams that can keep up with Oregon's speed. That's all they do. They recruit speed. So those are the two defensive game plans for both of these teams. The two players, I said would name one player per team, but I picked two, and I just mentioned them. But the other key player for this Ohio State team, as we've mentioned, all these superstars, is their young safety, sophomore Caleb Downs. Obviously, you remember him from Alabama. Absolute beast of a freshman. Could have gone pro right then and there. After Nick Saban announced his retirement, he transferred to Ohio State. And he's been as advertised so far. And as I just mentioned with their two edge rushers, can they contain him? Well, can Caleb Williams shut some of these guys down in the slot? And then when, inevitably, it will happen, these guys do get outside, can Caleb Downs, Denzel Burke, some of these secondary players, can they capitalize, make the open field tackles, and try to harness all the big plays that Oregon is going to try to make? Finally, for this game, what version of Dylan Gabriel are we going to get? Are we going to get the season opening version where, he's putting up numbers, 75% completion percentage, 250 yards, 3-4 touchdowns, get some on the ground? Or are we going to get the Michigan State version where he throws 2 interceptions, 1 in the red zone? You can't have the second version. I'll tell you that. You'll get blown the fuck out. So, to me, I have a hard time going against Ohio State here. They just have all the pieces. Their defense is legit. Obviously, Will Howard is not ideal compared to some of the quarterbacks that they've had throughout that program over the past decade. But all he's got to do is distribute the ball, just like Brock Purdy did tonight. Get your ball to the playmakers. So, excited for this game. 7:30 Eastern time. It's going to be electric. Oregon's stadium is a freaking awesome atmosphere. It's going to be electric. This is what joining the conferences, what the transfer portal, what the NIL deals did. Brought so much talent to these schools and allowed us to enjoy what we love so much about the sport. Competitiveness. Moving on, our second game. We're staying on Saturday here, and we're moving one slate behind the 7:30 game. We have Kansas State versus Colorado. Colorado, unranked. Kansas State, ranked number 18. Big 12 matchup. Huge implications for not only the playoff, but the Big 12 Conference Championship. So, this is what I'm looking for here. The Big 12 currently kind of top-heavy. You got BYU, who's undefeated. You have, obviously, Colorado and Kansas State. But you also have teams like Arizona and Oklahoma State who haven't performed, but still have the firepower to knock you out. And you can't afford to lose a game. Kansas State, you're thinking in your head, this is a winnable game. But as we've seen Colorado over the past few weeks, they have a huge emotional win against Baylor. And then they go on the road to UCF in the muggy heat that is Central Florida. And they harness those emotions and they beat the crap out of UCF, who was leading the nation in rushing. And they thwarted that attack. Colorado seems to be kind of coming into their own here. And that's exactly what you need to happen. They've switched from doing so much spread on offense and kind of shifted to 11 personnel because they weren't getting the time to throw the ball. And they said, all right, well, maybe we don't need to throw the ball on every freaking play because our quarterback is getting the shit kicked out of him and we can't do anything. We're giving up sacks. We're behind the chains. Nothing's happening. Let's start running the ball. And it's opened up this offense. Yeah, you have the playmakers. You got Travis Hunter, who Do we even need to talk about him? Best college football player in the nation, and I mean, probably was, since Charles Woodson. The dude's insane. Best corner and receiver in the nation. I don't need to mention him as my star player. He's going to make plays, so look out for that. But you got Jimmy Horn as well at receiver. And you're just going to need to have a balanced approach in this game because Kansas State, what they do well is they run the ball. And my key player to look out for in this game is DJ Gibbons. Every game that Kansas State has won this year, he goes off. Touchdowns, 100-yard games. I think he's had 100 yards in every game except for 2. 6'1", 215 pounds, power back. This guy's nothing to fuck with. And if you're Colorado and you get behind their quarterback, I believe his name is Alexander Johnston, which is a sweet name. He's shifty. He's kind of like Dylan Gabriel. Smaller frame, very elusive. You got that thunder and lightning approach with DJ Gibbons. You're going to need to stay ahead in this game because you can't allow Kansas State, who we know, Big 12, not known for their passing attacks, especially Kansas State, these teams. You got to stay ahead in this game. You can't fall behind because they'll pound the rock, they'll kill the clock, and you'll be going home with another loss. Outside of that, fun little storyline, Dylan Edwards, running back for Colorado Buffaloes last year, is now on Kansas State. Does he have a little bit of a revenge game in him? We'll have to see. Factors into the running argument that we just mentioned. So, big game, like I mentioned. You got BYU undefeated. You got Texas Tech, who's doing pretty solid in the conference. And then Kansas State and Colorado. This is a must-win game for both programs. Could this be a potential Big 12 championship matchup? We don't know. But if Colorado wins this one, you got to put them in the ranked discussion now. I would say they jump up into the teens as they're unranked now, but they'll be on a heater. They'll be 5-1. So I'm pulling for Colorado in this one. I think they get it done. You know, Kansas State, yeah, they're good, but we've seen this with Big 12 teams. You can't trust them. And the reason I trust this Colorado team is they're so mentally tough. They got the best college football player in the nation. They got arguably the best quarterback in the nation. And they've been through the ringer. They have so much negativity surrounding them when they lose. And at the beginning of the year, it looked like it was going to be another collapse for Dion and this team like last year. And they've battled through it all. And they seem to have found their identity. So I got Colorado in this one. Close game. Should be an incredible atmosphere up there in Boulder, Colorado. Which, side note, spent about a month there. Pretty sweet. Not gonna lie. Cool town. Should go check it out. Pretty hip, that's for sure, and expensive. So if you don't have money, maybe try to find, a spot not as expensive to go. Anyways, moving on to the final game. And did you think this would be an Elijah Talks Ball episode if I didn't mention the New England Patriots? Nope. Texans versus Patriots. And you guys know why. This is on my most excited games to watch. Like I said, these are good games, but they're also the games I'm most excited for. And y'all know why. Drake May gets his first career start against the Texans. I kind of smell an upset. Not trying to be a homer here, but let's walk through this, okay? Patriots defense, we know, pretty solid. Over the past couple weeks, we've gotten Marte Mapu back. Keon White obviously has come into his own. Jelani Tavai, we got some pieces. Christian Gonzalez has definitely solidified himself as a top corner in the league. But on the offensive side of the ball, which is the issue, and the only reason our defense has been struggling so much is that they're on the field so fucking much. They're starting to figure out an offensive line combo that has given Jacoby some decent protection. The problem is, Jacoby's holding on to the ball for too long. So not only are we stalling out on offense, we're killing our defense because our special teams have been very good so far this year. But we're also starting to find a wide receiver rotation with Jalen Polk, Pop Douglas, Kedrick Bourne is back. Now Kayshon Bouttie's starting to make some plays. Will he reach some of his potential? Because his first year at LSU, he looked like he was going to be a no-doubt first rounder. And then some work ethic and character things kind of popped off, but did he get scared straight over the summer? Hopefully. So we're starting to kind of round into shape here. Obviously, we got a couple solid tight ends with Hunter Henry and Austin Hooper. Then we got a nice little two-headed monster between Gibson and Ramondre in the backfield. We just needed a field general to get the ball out. And not only do we have a field general now, we got a fucking playmaker, baby. How many 6'4", 230-pound quarterbacks have failed in the NFL? I can tell you what, not that many, because you're probably in your head trying to think, yeah, how many have there? If you got to think, it's not that many. So I smell an upset. Obviously, this is going to be a tough game. Texans are good. Sucks that Nico Collins is out. You always want to play these teams at full strength. I wanted to see Gonzo go up against Collins. Would have been an awesome matchup. Get a little payback. Collins kind of worked him in his first preseason game when Gonzo was a rookie, so would have liked to see that payback happen. But now he gets a chance to go against Stephon Diggs. And this was a matchup that we got robbed of last year because Gonzo went down with that shoulder injury in week 4. Well, Stephon has shown that he's still got a little bit, but he's going to be their primary weapon in this game, and you bet your ass we're going to put him on him. And this will be a nice little test for Stephon Diggs, or Christian Gonzalez, because Stephon Diggs, while he's a little older, still very shifty and creative with his routes. But Gonzo has just looked so smooth and fluid throughout this entire season, and then obviously the 3.5 games that he played last year. This is kind of a game where, though it's not on, the big network for game of the week or a prime time, there's a lot of eyes on it because the Texans are a serious contender. And then Drake May, he's going to get a lot of publicity. 3rd overall pick. So Gonzo's going to get some eyes on him because he's been under the radar because we haven't been that good. So this is a chance for him to kind of show the league, like, yeah, I'm pretty fucking good. Outside of Drake May, who not looking for 350 yards and 4 touchdowns. Just looking for our offense to be competitive and competent. Make some plays. He might have a turnover. That's fine. It's his first start. Boston fans, taper your expectations. The dude's very good, okay? But it's his first start, and it's against the Texans. And you know what the Texans have? A serious pass rush. And as I mentioned before, offensive line, as it's been getting better, still not ideal. So, does Alex Van Pelt scheme some short stuff? Maybe some quarterback draws. Let those edge rushers get upfield, send it up the middle with the QB now that we can run. So, there's going to be some ways to offset that pressure. Drake May seems to have no problem pulling the trigger, but I expect the Texans will get some sacks due to inexperience of how to move in the pocket. Maybe doesn't want to try to force the ball down the field, so he takes a sack instead. That's fine. Want to limit the turnovers. The recipe to win this game, obviously. Good defense, limit the turnovers, and hit the big plays when they happen. Because there are going to be moments in this game where Drake May breaks the pocket and somebody is deep downfield. We got to hit these plays. And then for fuck's sake, we can't have 12 penalties like we did last week. We will not win this game 1,000%. So, not saying that there is going to be an upset, but I could see the route to being an upset. Excited for these 3 games. Oh, I almost forgot. The key player to watch in this game, and I'm going to sound like a homer here, but Marte Mapu, our 3rd-round pick out of Sacramento State last year. Thank you, Bill Belichick. Christian Gonzalez, Keon White, Marte Mapu. These guys look like studs. This guy has missed a lot of time due to injury over the past 2 years, his first 2 years in the NFL. This is the 2nd year. First game was last week. They came back for this season. This guy finds himself around the ball everywhere he goes. Last year, forced fumble, picked off Patrick Mahomes. Game against San Francisco, Mapu forces the fumble. Only touchdown we end up getting is off of that. This guy consistently is around the ball. And a second-year player who hasn't been on the field a lot, he's green dotting it. So he's the QB of that defense. All I've heard from players out of that building and coaches, this guy's incredibly smart. And he impresses them with his knowledge of the game. And you can see it on tape. This guy flies around. He's very intelligent as of, how the play is breaking down and where to go, how to react. I expect him to make a couple plays, maybe another forced fumble. He's been very good at that. Couple tip passes, maybe they lead to an interception. But he's kind of the key player in this game as we've lost Juwan Bentley. And Jelani Tavai, not known for his pass coverage prowess, more of a run stopper. We're going to need Mapu to step up, especially with Kyle Duggar being out and Jabril Peppers going full-on psychotic. That's unfortunate, Read into that. We're not going to talk about it here, but Mapu, huge game needed from him. Also, Del Pettis, Jalen Hawkins, those are kind of our backup safeties. Couple hard hitters. We need these young guys to step up. This is a young team. And this is how you put your best foot forward and grow for the future. You're going to go through some speed bumps. You're going to hit some fucking rocks in the road. That's fine. But do the big plays make up for the low plays? So, can't wait to watch these 3 games. And before we wrap it up, got to give you my special spotlight for the night and for the weekend. Ashton Jeanty, running back out of Boise State. This guy has 95 carries, 1,031 yards, and 16 touchdowns. 1,031 yards, 16 touchdowns on 95 carries through 5 games, guys. He's averaging over 200 yards a game and 3 touchdowns a game. He's gone against Oregon. And he's gone against some other solid schools. Are they SEC? No. But in what world do you average 11 yards per carry? And it's not like he's just got the whole field to run. This guy's carrying people to the end zone. Kind of an early mock draft prediction here. Would love to see Ashton Jeanty go and play for Jim Harbaugh. I mean, what a match made in heaven. Boise State takes on Hawaii. They're the last game of the night on Saturday. Definitely tune into that. Guys, can't wait for this weekend of football. Big games. Ones that I didn't even mention. Penn State, USC. Texas and Oklahoma. Ole Miss and LSU. Same time frame as Oregon and USC. Oregon and Ohio State. Then on Sunday, Commanders and the Ravens. Giants and Bengals. Big game for the Bengals. So, some pretty awesome games this weekend. Can't wait to watch them. Can't wait to break them down. Guys, stay safe. Enjoy your weekend. Should be incredibly exciting. Can't wait to get back on here and talk to you guys about it. Peace out.